The history of English language. More people are trying to learn English than any other language in the world. English is the language of political negotiations and international business. It has become the international language of science and medicine. International treaties say passengers airplanes must speak English. English is the major foreign language taught in most schools in South Africa and Europe. School children in the Philippines and Japan began learning English at an early age. English is the official language of more than 75 countries, including Britain, Canada, the United States, Australia, and South Africa. In countries where many different languages are spoken, English is often used as an official language to help people communicate. India is a good example. English is the common language in this country, where at least 24 languages are spoken by more than 1 million people. Where did the English language come from? Why has it become so popular? To answer this question, we must travel back in the time about 5,000 years ago to an area north of the Black Sea in southeastern Europe. Experts say the people in that area spoke a language called Proto-Indo-European. That language is not longer spoken. Researchers do not really know what it sounded like yet. Proto-Indo-European is believed to be the ancestor of more European languages. These included languages that became Ancient Greek, Ancient German, and Ancient Latin. Latin disappears as a spoken language, yet is left behind three great languages in Italian that become modern Spanish, French, and Italian. Ancient German became Dutch, Danish, German, Norwegian, Swedish, and one of the languages just developed into English. The English language is the result of the invasions of island of Britain over many hundred years. The invaders lived along the northern coast of Europe. The first invasions were by a people called Angles about 1,500 years ago. The Angles was a German tribe who crossed the English Channel. Later two more groups crossed to Britain. They were the Saxons and the Jutes. These groups fought a people called the Celts, who had lived in Britain for many thousands of years. The Celts and the invaders fought. After a while, most of the Celts are killed or made slaves. Some escaped to live in the area that became Wales. Through the years, the Saxons, Angles, and the Jutes mixed their different languages, and the result is what is called Anglo-Saxons or Old English. Old English is extremely difficult to understand. Only a few experts can read its earliest form of English. Several written works have survived from the Old English period. Perhaps the most famous is called Beowulf. It is the oldest known English poem. Experts say it was written in Britain more than 1,000 years ago. The name of the persons who wrote this is not known. Beowulf is the story of a great king who fought against monsters. He was a good king, well liked by his people. A new book by Seamus Heaney tells these ancient stories more than English. The next great invasions of Britain come from the far north beginning about 1,100 years ago. Fierce people called Viking raided came from Denmark, Norway, and other northern countries. They were looking to capture trade goods and slay and take away anything of value. In some areas, the Viking became so powerful they built temporary bases. The temporary bases sometimes became parliament. Later, many Vikings stayed in Britain. Many English words used today came from these ancient Vikings. Words like sky, leg, school, egg, grow, lift, and take are from the old languages of the far northern countries. The next invasions of Britain took place more than 900 years ago, in 1066. History experts call these invasions Norman conquest. William the Conqueror led it. The Normans were the French-speaking people from Normandy in the north of France. They became the new rulers of Britain. These new rulers spoke only French for several hundred of years. It was the most important language in the world at the time. It was the language of educated people. But the common people of Britain still spoke Old English. Old English took many words from the Norman French. Some of these include damage, breathing, marriage. Most English words the Lord and government come from the Norman French, words such as jury, parliament, and justice. The French language used by in the Norman rulers greatly changed the way English was spoken by 800 years ago. English became what language experts call Middle English. As time passed, the ruling Normans no longer spoke true French. Their language has become the mix of French and Middle English. Middle English sounds like Modern English, but is very difficult to understand now. Many written were from this by Geoffrey Chaucer, a poet who lived in London and died there in 1400. Chaucer's most famous work is the Canterbury Tales, written more than 600 years ago. The history of English language. 2. Last week, we told how the English language developed as a result of several invasions of Britain. The first involved three tribes called the Angles, the Jutes, and the Saxons. A mix of their languages produced a language called Anglo-Saxons or Old English. It sounded very much like German. Only the few words remained from the Celts who had lived in Britain. Two more invasions added words to Old English. The Viking of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden arrived in Britain more than 1,000 years ago. The next invasion took place in the years 166. French forces from Normandy were led by a man known as William the Conqueror. The Normandy rulers added many words to English. The words parliament, jury, justice, and other that deal with law come from the Norman rulers. Over time, the different languages combine to the result in what English experts call Middle English. While Middle English still sounds similar to German, it also began to sound like Modern English. Here Warren's Gill read the very beginning of Jeffrey Chaucer's great poem, The Canterbury Tale, as it were written in the Middle English. Chaucer wrote that poem at the late of 1300. It was written in the language of the people. The rulers of Britain at the time still spoke the Norman French. They brought with them in 1066. The kings of Britain did not speak a language of people until the early 1400. Slowly, Norman French was used less and less until it disappeared. The English language was strongly influenced by an event that took place in 1400 years ago. In the years 597, the Roman Catholic Church began its attempt to make Christianity the religion of Britain. The language of the Catholic Church was Latin. Latin was not spoken as a language of any countries at the time, but it was still used by some people. Latin made it possible for church members from Rome to speak to church members from Britain. Educated people from different countries could communicate using Latin. Latin has a great effect on the English language. Here's a few the Latin words discussed became several words in English, including disc, dish, and desk. The Latin word quietus became the English word quiet. Some English names of planes, such as the ginger and trees, such as cedar, come from the Latin. So there's some medical words such as cancer. English is a little like a living thing that continues to grow. English began to grow more quickly when William Caxton returned to Britain in the year 1476. He has been in Holland and other areas of Europe where he had learned printing. He returned to Britain with the first printing press. The printing press made it possible for almost anyone to buy a book. It helped spread education and the English language. Slowly, during the 1500s, English became the modern English language we would recognize. English speakers today would be able to communicate with English speakers in the last part of the 16th century. It was during this time period that the great writer in English produced his work. His name was William Shakespeare. His play continued to be printed, acted in the theaters, and seen in motion pictures almost 400 years after his death. Experts say that Shakespeare's work were written to be performed on the stage, not to be read. Yet, regular sound of his words can produce pictures and provide feeling of anger, fear, and laughter. Shakespeare's famous play Romeo and Juliet is so sad that people cry when they see the famous story. The story of the Power Hungry King's George III is another very popular play by Shakespeare. The development of the English language took a giant step just 9 years before the death of William Shakespeare. Three more British ships crossed the Atlantic Ocean in 1607. They landed in an area that would later become the southern area, American state of Virginia. They began the first of several British colonies. The name of the first small colony was Jamestown. In time, people in these new colonies began to call the area of the new land by word borrowed from the native people they thought living there. For example, many of the great rivers in the United States are taken from American Indian words. The Mississippi, the Tennessee, the Missouri are examples. Other Native American words included moccasin, the kind of shoes made of animal skin that Indians wore on their feet. This borrowing or adding of foreign words to English was a way of expanding the language. The name of 3 days of the week are a good example of this. The people from Northern Europe honored three good with a special day week. The god was Odin, Thor, and Freya. Odin's day became Wednesday in English, Thor's day became Thursday, and Freya's day became Friday. Britain had other colonies in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and India. The English language also became the part of this colony. These colonies are now independent, but English still is the one of the languages spoken. And the English language grew as word from the native languages were added. For example, the word shampoo for the hair came from India. Banana is believed to be from Africa. Experts cannot explain many English words for hundreds of years that were called a halt. The word is still used but not as commonly as the word dog. Experts do not know where the word dog came from or when. English speakers just started using it. Another word whose origins are unknown include fan, bad, and bit. English English speakers also continue to invent new words by linking old words together. A good example is the word motel and hotel. Many years ago, someone linked them together into the word motel. A motel is a small hotel near the road where people traveling in the car can stay for the night. Other words come from the first letter of names of group or devices. A device-defined object that cannot be seen is called radio detecting, and ranging became radar. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is usually called NATO. Experts say that English language has more words that explain the same thing that any other language. For example, the word large, huge, vast, massive, and enormous all means something really big. People often ask how many words there are in the English language. Well, no one really knows that. The Oxford English Dictionary lists about 615,000 words, yet the many scientific words not in the dictionary could increase the number to almost 1 million. And experts are never really sure how to count English words. For example, the word mouse. A mouse is a small creature from the rodent family, but mouse has another very different meaning. A mouse is also a handheld device used to help control the computer. If you are counting words, do you count mouse 2 times? Visitors to the Voice of America hear people speaking more than 50 different languages. More podcaster at VOA come from countries where these languages are spoken. International organizations such as VOA would find it possible to operate without a second language all the people speak. The language that permits VOA to work is English. It is not unusual to see someone from the Chinese survey talking to someone from the Arabic survey, both speaking English. English is becoming the common language of millions of people worldwide, helping speakers of many different languages communicate. Be your own investigative journalist. New in the age of information. We are often told that the age of the information economies had arrived. The idea is that intellectual work is becoming a more important source of wealth than manufacturing. There are already too many factories for the number of people who want to buy stuff. So the winners of the marketplace need to have a lead to term of fashions or technology to beat the competition. You can easily see this process at work in important industries like car and clothing and computers, where big companies prefer to concentrate on promoting their brand and let subcontractors do the less profitable work. of manufacturing the products. But there's a problem with information as an organizing principle in societies. It's only count if people pay attention to it together with inventor and designer. The information economy needs public relations executive to make sure customers are getting the right message. So faced with the increasing clamp on our attention, organizations in other spheres of life have to do more to get their shares of it too. So PR people may work for politicians, then they call them spin doctor, or they may work for others, then they call them publishers or bloggers. A lot of our news are actually compiled from press releases and reports of events deliberately staged for journalists. Journalists spend their time not investigating, but passing on the word of a spokesperson, publicist, or another professional pro, propagandist. Quoting from Evelyn Waugh, the manipulation of news is most clearly visible in time of war. A BBC journalist speaking about the recent war in Iraq compared his situation with that of the reporter in Scott Waugh satirical novel on the spread in the book. Everyone was sure that the real story was happening somewhere else, but they weren't actually sure how to get there. Now's the way the journalist who arrived in the right place at the right time is a more granted. The word exclusive. Armed with digital cameras and satellite phone, they can find their story on the spot, which is why the military controls the movement of journalists ever more globally. Don't believe everything you read in the paper. The bedrock is scoop is about the new paper's owner, Lord Cobber. The editors can never disagree with him. When he's right about something, they answer definitely. And when he's wrong, they say, up to a point, Lord Cobber. It seems reasonable to suppose that in the real world, the opinions of such powerful titans still influence the journalist and editor who work for them. Infotainment in countries where the news is not officially controlled is likely to be provided by commercial organizations who depend on advertising. The news has to attract viewers and maintain its audience ratings. I exciting pictures to show. I suspect that some story get airtime just because there happen to be exciting pictures to show. In Brighton, we have the tabloid newspaper which millions of people read similarly for entertainment without even why politicians' speeches nowadays have to include a soundbite, the small judgment that seem to give a powerful message. There is progressively less room for historical background or stage effects, which are harder to present as a sensational story. The rise of CNN, the 24 hours of all news channel, has not increased the amount of real life reporting because the format of the channels is designed so that people who want to get the hot headline will not have to wait long. It tends to concentrate on the main story that and repeat it. Alternative reporter. There is an argument that with spreading access to the internet and through technology for recording sound and images, we will all be able to find exactly the information we want. People around the world will be able to publish their own eyewitness account and compete with the established new gatherers on something like equal terms. I think this is true up to a point, but what it will mean also is that we will be subjected to a still greater amount of nonsense and lies. Any web blog may contain the scoop of the years, full or equally of fabricated story that you will never be able to check. Have you ever wished you are sorry? Have you ever wished you were better informed? Maybe the time has become to do something about it. And I don't just mean chasing your joys of TV channel or newspaper. In the world where everyone wants you to listen to their versions, you all have two choices: switch off altogether or start looking for sources you can trust. The investigative journalist of the future is everyone who wants to know the truth. Aeroplanes and global warming. Have you ever looked out of the window of the passenger plane from 30,000 feet at the vast expanses of empty ocean and uninhabited land and wondered how people can have any major effect on the earth? I have. But it's now becoming really clear that we are causing a great deal of damage to the natural environment. And the plants, which roses in comfort to destination around the globe, contribute to one of the biggest environmental problems that we face today: global warming. For those of us lucky enough to have money to spend, and the free time to spend it in. There are a huge number of fascinating places to explore. The cost of air transport that decreased rapidly over the years. And for many people, especially in rich countries, it is now possible to fly around the world with a little more than the contents of our weekly pay pockets. Unfortunately, plants produce far more carbon dioxide than any other form of public transport. And CO2 is now to be a greenhouse gas. A gas will drop the heat of the sun, causing the temperature of the earth to rise. Scientists predict that in the near future, the climate in Britain will resemble that of the Mediterranean island Cali, a popular destination of writers, holiday marker fly up to seek the sun. If global warming continues, we may also find that tourist destinations, such as the Maldives, have disappeared under the water because of rising sea levels. As usual, people in the developing world are having to deal with problems created mainly by those of us in the developed countries. Beatrice Scow, a spokeswoman for the Europe Federations for Transport and Environment, say that one person flying in an airplane for 1 hour is responsible for the same greenhouse gas emissions at a typical Bangladesh in a whole year. And every year, the jet aircraft generate almost carbon dioxide, and the entire African continent rolled up. When you're waiting impatiently in a crowded departure lodge for the delayed flight or trying to find luggage which had gone astray, plane fare may seem unreasonable height. But is it really we are not paying enough for air travel? Under the polluter-based principle, where users pay for the bad effects they cause, the damage caused by planes is not being bad for. Aircraft fuel is not taxed or international flights and planes, unlike car, are not inspected for CO2 emissions. Also, the Kyoto Agreement does not cover greenhouse gases produced by planes, leaving governments to decide for themselves who is responsible. So, what can be done to solve the problem? Well, although aircraft engines manufacturers are making more efficient engines and researching alternative fuels such as hydrogen it will be the caved before air travel is not damaging the environmental. Government don't seem to be taking the problem seriously, so it is up to individual travelers to do what they can to help. The most obvious way to dealing with the problem is to not traveling by planes at all. Environmental groups like Friends of the Earth encourage people to travel by train and plane, holiday nearer home. However, with prices of flights at an all-time low and its sector's destination more popular instead of Bangkok or Skinners over Singapore. French of the Earth also advise using teleconferencing for international business meetings, but more business people still prefer to meet face to face. However, there is a way of offsetting the carbon dioxide we produce. Supposed include Coldplay and Pink Floyd offers a safe survive which can relieve the goody consensus of air travelers. The Future Forward website calculates the amount of CO2 you are responsible for producing on your flight, and for a small fee will balance the number of trees will absorb with CO2. Other company CO2.org offers a similar service but invest your money in energy saving projects such as providing efficient light bulbs to villagers in Mauritius. Yesterday, I returned to Japan from England and was happy to pay Future Forest £25 to plant the 3 trees would balance my share of the CO2 produced by my return flight. Now the only thing making me lose sleep is jet lag.